Hey fellow otakus, we are back today to discuss chapter 221 of Tokyo Revengers, and this week's chapter is titled Ups and Downs of His Fate. Wow, what a chapter we got this week. The drama involved is just next level and feels like this first initial peak that we're going to get for this arc. The chapter culminates in some tragic news, but before we get to that, let's get into the review. The chapter starts with us seeing a full page of Mikey saying, "I got a bad feeling about tonight," before we return back to the amusement park, where we can see locals or visitors shouting out about what happened and how somebody heard a gunshot, and then everyone running to get out of there. We then finally come back to the rain falling on a Takemichi covering Senju with Draken standing in front of them protecting them, and one Rokuhara Tandai guy on the ground with three more in the background staring at Draken. We see a close-up of the gun that's been pushed away, and Draken asks Takemichi, "You good?" Before the Rokuhara Tandai guys see who it is and scream, "Shit, run," as they do exactly that and run away. Draken continues to stand there in front of Takemichi and Senju, and Takemichi says, "Thank you so much, Draken-kun," to which Draken just responds, "Sure," before kicking the gun further away. While staring at the gun, Draken says they got the nerve to attack with such dangerous weapons, but Takemichi doesn't pay this any attention, simply turning around to Senju saying, "Senju, are you hurt anywhere?" To which Senju responds, "No," with another seemingly slightly bewitched look in her eyes as she stares at him. I really think that we're starting to see the whole Senju falling for Takemichi thing going forward as part of the detail for this final arc. What I have to hope comes from this though is that we do not see any conflict between Senju, Takemichi and Hinata. Hina has been built up this entire story to be this central character for Takemichi's role and service in the story, and we saw before coming back for this final arc. Takemichi and Hina were preparing to get married. Everything seemed like it was in place apart from Mikey himself. I really don't want there to be some kind of conflict or distraction that comes here in terms of Senju's feelings. I feel that would really take away from the story. But back to the chapter. Come back to Takemichi after having confirmation from Senju that everything is okay, then asking, "Why are you here, Draken?" Draken takes a moment to respond, saying, "Inupi heard it somewhere. There were people planning to attack you tonight," to which Takemichi shows a slightly shocked reaction. Draken continues, and that they were heading over here, the amusement park. The realization finally seems to set in from Takemichi, as he says those guys were really trying to kill me, huh? Draken confirms that they're Rokuhara's kids, and Draken says, "Come on, you gotta know that you bear a high title around here. Those dudes were sure to shit their pants when they heard someone like you joined Brahman instead." Takemichi seems to acknowledge this, saying that's why they went as far as using a gun. Draken seems to pause here again for a moment before continuing. The War of Three Deities might not be a plain delinquent conflict anymore. They are involved with shady businesses, and companies invest in them. They have a different look in their eyes. And I really think that this look not only necessarily refers to Bonten that we see in the future, but it also refers to all past arcs and what we used to see of Tallman, what we saw of what happened when the Black Dragons were absorbed by Tallman in the future, and all the other arcs that have led up to this point and the dark place that Tallman had reached. Draken and Takemichi stand side by side, and Takemichi asks, "I wonder what will happen next." Draken responds, "Maybe Mikey saw this coming." Takemichi takes a moment to process that, before saying, "Draken-kun, let's keep it between us, but just now I was able to foresee the future." To which Draken is truly shocked this time, at the confirmation that Takemichi can still do the things he could do before, but only now that he can do them differently. This would seem to be with the fact that now Takemichi can not only return to the future, he can actually see the future. Takemichi continues, "In that future, I saw Senju die protecting me. I've prevented that terrible outcome. It's all thanks to you, Draken-kun." We then see Takemichi and Draken in a beautiful single-page panel, Takemichi saying, "We've successfully changed one future." Draken seems to take a moment. He then says, "Is that so?" before we get this great picture of him smiling. "Then I'm glad." Senju then calls out, seemingly interrupting the moment, saying, "Hey, I think we gotta go. We'll be in trouble if someone gets here." Takemichi turns to her, saying, "You're right," and Senju and Takemichi begin to run away, before Takemichi stops as he realizes that Draken isn't moving. He calls out to Draken, who simply says, "Takemichi, please tell this to Mikey. Don't cause too much trouble." Takemichi is confused by this, saying, "What are you talking about? You tell him yourself." And then we see the tragic ending to this chapter. We see a collapsing Draken, and the horror in Takemichi's eyes as he watches it, before we see a collapsed Draken simply say, "I've done all I can do." The chapter then ends with a zoomed out shot of Draken lying there on the floor, the rain pouring around him as Takemichi and Senju stare at him collapsed there. There is no tagline for this chapter, there is just simply the "to be continued" sign, and the roaring rain itself would seem to be volume enough for this chapter. I do have really mixed feelings about this. Draken is such an important character, and I wasn't convinced that he would survive the arc. But if he does die here, to have him die so early would just be tragic. It would be so sad. And the evidence that we see from the panel really does suggest that he will pass here. We see 3 bullet wounds, one seemingly below the heart, one in what would appear to be the lung, and one that's then perhaps hit the kidney or the liver. Regardless, I think it's fair to say, knowing what we know of Tokyo Revengers, knowing how people die, how they live, miraculously sometimes, it's never beyond the realm of possibility or belief, it's just slightly extended circumstances. And the way that Draken is laying, and the position of these bullets, I don't think he's getting up. I think we really are going to have to say goodbye to one of the greatest characters in this story, and a character who's been one of the greatest characters from a new gen series in a long time. Draken has been an amazing character who has been there and has been the focal point of the story from the start. It was Draken himself that was supposed to fix everything from the very beginning, so for him to die first in this arc perhaps is poetic in some ways, although still it is truly, truly saddening. And there you have my thoughts on chapter 221 of Tokyo Revengers. Please leave your thoughts down in the comment section below, and don't forget to like the video, hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell. Peace to all.